The Trump administration announced in July this year that it had suspended benefits for Rwanda for accessing the U.S. market under the AGOA agreement. This particular move has been compared as a David and Goliath situation. Plus, of course, we will be looking at this particular issue right here on the program. This is a CNBC Africa Special, and we are coming to you from Kigali, Rwanda, and my name is Eugene Anangwe. In the next 1 hour or so, we'll be discussing this particular issue, and I'm joined by the Minister for Trade and Industry of Rwanda, Vincent Munyeshaka. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Welcome.
Also with us is none other than Danny Rugamba, who's the Communications Officer of Motions. Thank you so much for joining us. And with us also is Patel Ritesh, who's the Managing Director of Utexrwa. Minister, I think I'm going to be starting with you because this particular move is something that happened, to Rwanda, coming at a time when there was a fast warning, from the U.S. as far as the tariffs that were levied on the second-hand clothing from the U.S. Coming into the Rwandan market. And your ministry did actually respond, and it actually said that withdrawing the benefits of AGOA from Rwanda was in the discretion of the United States. I want to know from you, days or months after this particular move from the U.S. was made, how bad have we been hit as a country?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to start by explaining the meaning of the suspension. And I think I'd like to clarify that issue to the population. First of all, Rwanda is still an AGOA beneficiary country, simply because in 2016 we have developed our AGOA action plan, kind of a strategy, and you have identified actually three subsectors, including this one of textile and garment, but also another key priority subsector was actually agro-processed product, and another subsector was light manufacturing. Specifically, Rwanda has been suspended from benefiting AGOA benefit only on that very particular textile and garment subsector. So Rwanda will be continuing benefiting the duty-free treatment from the two others, and then we're only suspended on that very particular subsector.
So how does that impact Rwanda's economy, that
suspension? I think we need to look into some figures and to consider strategies we're trying to lay out to see how we can fill the gap. First of all, in terms of exports, our exports and even our trade relation with the U.S., the United States of America, have been growing over years. And if I consider the last 5 years on average, actually our export has been averaging around $2.1 million US, and a big junction of this export was coming actually from textile, and after that decision was released, we did an exercise with our local players, factories, to measure what will be the impact.
And what did you find out?
So the impact actually was in terms of the expected impact was in terms of losing exports, but also to some people, some staff to lose some job. As we talk now, we have been able to discuss with local players here on the market. Right now, there is no impact on jobs, simply because the factories has managed to find out what we call alternative market. For instance, if I give you an example of one of the biggest factory, that is CNH, they have been able to diversify to Europe market, and right now they are supplying some clients in UK, in Germany, and they are in discussion with one Belgium-based client that is actually ready to give them an order that will require C&H to use 100% of their capacity. So in terms of direct impact to our economy, it is not yet there. Actually, the expected impact was actually to those companies targeting US markets on only textile and garment product. So
duty-free. We will definitely be able to examine that in the course of the program, but let me now bring in Danny. Danny, first of all, as a Rwandan, listening to the government respond back to the US, considered a superpower, that, you know what, you want to suspend our benefits into AGOA, it's in your discretion. You can choose to suspend or not suspend. How did that, first of all, make you feel as a person who's in the industry that was actually going to be affected by this?
Thank you so much. I think from that point of view, you see that it's about time. It's about time for the fashion industry and for the textile industry in Rwanda to stand up and to start producing things that are made locally and that can be shared with Rwandans. Because when you look at what they were giving us was second-hand clothes. And at a point in life, you start to question yourself, how long am I going to wear these used clothes? How am I going to keep wearing this? So this is where you come in as from the fashion industry and said that you can do something with it. We have seen this suspension as an opportunity for the local industries to start producing things that are of quality and things that I can wear and feel proud because it's made in Rwanda, but not necessarily that. But also because it's something that's made out of quality, it's something that's made out of people who are passionate about it and who are skilled. So it's something that we have received very well from the angle of producing things locally, producing the fashion from the fashion industry, and also things that can be shared with Rwandans and also around the world.
But as you say that also, it is an opportunity, but a challenge at the same time. Yes. Is the local textile industry up to this challenge? Personally, as you speak, from your small industry where you are actually doing, fashion, producing designs as far as textile is concerned, do you personally feel that you're up to this particular challenge of meeting that gap that will be created after this particular suspension or the gradual phase out of the second-hand clothes?
I see this challenge as a journey. Because once you start, when we started this journey, there had to be so much conviction on why Made in Rwanda is essential, why it's better than some other products, why it's better than other garments that are produced around the world, which are cheaper compared to, if we face the reality, which are cheaper to some of the Made in Rwanda garments. And also, from that, it's a journey that starts with the mindset. From what you produce, how can I approach the customer base in Rwanda to understand that this is bringing so many benefits compared to the challenges that it has. So it's something that we looked at from the perspective of, we have to look at the mindset first. We have to see that the people in Rwanda are aware of what we can produce from our capacity.
And are ready to consume it.
Yes, and are ready to consume it. And also for the quality that it is. So once you move from there, which is also, it's such a progressive way to go, when you move from there, you also look at the products that you have. What's the capacity from your industry, from your company itself? Am I able to satisfy the customer base that I have? Because what we have seen now is the increased awareness. People are now aware of what is made in Rwanda. People now have adapted. So from adapting, you also look at, how am I going to sustain this customer base from the people that I have, and also from this growing size of people who are interested in our products. So when it's a challenge in the aspect of mindset, and also the aspect of the the products that we have now that the customer base has grown, is it meeting? Can we produce enough for that? And so when you look at what we are producing, we also have the different institutions, government institutions that are working with us, on that journey.
In working out that particular issue that is remaining. I mean, talking of journey, Ritesh, Utexrwa has been in this market for over 30 years. I mean, since 1984. Yeah. And, you know, today if we look at it and ask, have you been growing, you know, in terms of producing what the market needs? Because at the end of the day, you are sort of out of the 8, industries or factories that are actually in this textile industry, you're among the only ones who are actually producing, materials for producing, clothes and all that. Where do you see the gaps as far as meeting this demand that will be created or that is already there today?
Thank you, Paul. Actually, for textile sector, if we can say, it's not a challenge. Actually, it's an opportunity to growth. Since we are facing out the second-hand clothes, and we are creating some gap, and definitely we see on that gap there is an opportunity. Not only for us, we mainly producing the fabric, but this is the big benefit to the local tailors, and by doing this one, thousands of jobs can be created.
So at the end of the day, we are creating the jobs or the opportunities for those who might lose it under this particular suspension that we saw happening with the US.
Yeah. Even more, even because now only the phase out the second-hand clothes, there are few people who is getting benefit only on the trading. Now we are converting these people to the manufacturing in the garment sector. So the growth of opportunity will be going multiplication.
Mm-hmm. Right. Minister.
Maybe I'd like to add something on what has been said by my colleague here. Of course, this is a big opportunity for our textile and garment sector for growing, and actually the challenge I'm seeing at hand, we can't say there is no challenge. The challenge that is there, actually, it is in relation to being able to come up with a very strong investment plan for them to fill the gap. Yes, it is an opportunity, but that is coming with an investment requirement in terms of, for instance, upgrading the technology, upgrading equipment, but also to do some expansion to be able to increase production capacity for different factories and SMEs operating in that. Yes, there is a challenge, but the challenge is part of business, and actually it is doable.
Right. From the cost analysis that you did as far as you're analyzing the expected impact of this suspension, let's talk a bit numbers now, because at the end of the day, what sort of impact to the economy do you see this suspension bringing into Rwanda, especially when it comes to the amount of money that you will need to actually use to pay for taxes for those traders who had already gotten some contracts or agreements already, that now they'll have to pay that tax from their own pockets. There's an announcement that the government will be actually paying these taxes for these traders. How does this work? How will this actually be implemented?
Yeah, I think first of all, if I'm trying to be a bit analytical to look at some figures, actually what we were exporting under AGOA framework is representing 0.95% of our total exports to the US market. So the impact, if we are not able to fill the gap, the impact will be limited to just 1% of our exports. But we have wanted to come up with strategies to see how we can support our factories to fund out, first of all, to fund out alternative market. And as I told you, our factories are finding market in Europe, but also they are focusing by coming with strategies to enter even domestic market. So for me, I think I'm seeing a good chances of maximizing on alternative markets, but also to maximize on local market. And by the end of the day, definitely for me, I don't see much impact on our economy. And sometimes back when actually, as a short-term impact, when this decision was actually released out to the public, actually some orders after July 2018 were cancelled. But I do appreciate the readiness of our factories to very quickly find out other orders to replace the orders from USA-based companies. So for me, I don't see much negative impact on our economy. That's why we need to stick on our policy of industrialization to try to see how we can increase local production for export, for job creation, but also as far as I'm talking exports, and even for import substitution, simply because as Rwanda is a developing country, we still have a very huge trade deficit, and we need to make sure that we have a very favorable trade balance in terms of trying to see how we can continuously increase on export and reducing importation, and importation actually to cover the capital goods and the minimum requirements we need for our economy to grow.
Right. I'm going to still push you on this because the issue of the payment of the taxes for those affected by that announcement by the US, I would like you to break down for us. How will the government do that?
Actually, yesterday, and even if you have been following, the last cabinet, we have approved a facility, what we call the Industry Adjustment Facility. But during our discussion with some of our factories here in the country, actually they told us this is not needed. If the big issue I'm seeing at hand right now, there is no, it's the issue related to cost of transport. And we have made some calculation in terms of actually to see whether if our factories continues to want to access AGOA market, actually the total bill for the whole year was around $700,000 US dollar. And actually, from the discussion I had with some factories, they don't need that money simply because they are seeing some alternative. Now they are asking government to support them on reducing cost of transport to access Asian market, to access European market. This is now the right issue we have at hand, and we have committed to work on it to see how, working with our Transporters Association, to see how actually we can reduce that cost. And this is paying tax is not longer an issue on the agenda.
Okay. And so if they would need some financial backing, the government says it is ready to support them on that end.
If they want to continue to access US market, government of Rwanda is ready to support. But what they're telling us now, there is no need to do so. Okay. Because they have market in Europe and they have market even here within the country.
Right, perfect. I mean, Danny, I mean, let's talk about practically your area of trade as far as, you know, entrepreneurship is concerned, and feeling into the market needs are concerned. You know, still Rwanda does not, you know, grow cotton, one of the raw materials required to actually come up with textile and stuff like that. How do you then see the support, or what sort of support do you feel young industries like yours really need to be able to work hand in hand with the government in this particular goal of, you know, phasing out the second-hand clothes and meeting the demand that is actually out there in the market?
I think the government is really being very supportive in different sectors, in different areas. They're providing different incentives to remind us and to show us that they are with us. So when we look at, it's something that the minister mentioned, the cost of transport is still a challenge. It's a challenge because most of the raw materials that we use are imported. Once we are ready to close or to strategize how we can see the cost of transport reduced, that also it contributes to the entire cost of production, and also other things that are involved in making the final product. We have Itexidwa, which is also the industry that we can work with in terms of producing for them to avail some of the raw materials that we need. But also there has to be a clear strategy and a clear exchange and plan on how we can work with them.
Right. What sort of percentage, I mean, do you import as far as raw material is concerned when it comes to textile?
We import it's above 80%.
80%, right. So, Patel, I mean, why wouldn't you be able to foot that 80% and remove it from their budget? What is missing?
He is especially in the fashion industries. So to reduce all 100%, it's quite challenging. But definitely it can be, we can plan out, and it can be reduced by the 50%. And what we are talking about before, the cotton is not a challenge for industries. Cotton we can get from our region, which is less than 300 kilometers from the Rwanda, any side. So especially the raw material is not a problem for the textile industries. Only what was the missing was a market. And by phasing out the second-hand cloth, now market is developing. And this is the one which can give us a better shape to the textile sector.
Minister, Danny says 80% of what they use is actually imported. Ritesh says, I mean, raw material is not really a big issue. Where do you see the gaps as far as what Ritesh and others should be doing to support the other upcoming textile industries to grow so that there is more base as far as sources of textile is concerned for the public?
Yeah, I think raw material, by the time being, they are saying that it is not an issue, simply because they can get it from the region. But I still believe it is an issue if we... Actually, our definition of value addition, it is when you are able to add like a minimum of 30% on the value. So if you import something, if you can process it and add like above 30%, this is made in Rwanda. And import is a big component of the cost of production. What we have tried to do as government was actually to not apply any custom tax to imported input. And at a policy level, we still believe there is a need to increase on having local inputs. For instance, in the agro processing sector, this is actually our focus to make sure that we have local input. But as far as this very particular textile and garment industry is concerned, I think we'll be relying much on import from outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are people who actually look at this and say Rwanda is actually fighting a battle that it cannot actually win. How do you take on the United States and actually say that, you know what, do as you wish, we will actually handle our things and we'll be able to build our own industries? What would you tell such people who have such kind of thoughts that you cannot win this battle?
First of all, where we are getting it may be very wrong. Mm-hmm. It is not a battle. It is not a war. It's about policy space. Our government, I think we need to own our policy formulation, planning process, budgeting process. We need to own it, and even we need to grow our industry. I give you some figures. Rwanda has been growing, and actually, in terms of economic growth, and actually it is among the fastest growing economies in Africa. But if you try to analyze the composition of the drivers of that growth, around 46%, between 46 and 47% is coming from services, 41% coming from agriculture sector, and then industry only between 16 to 17%. What does it mean? We are growing, but there is no way as a country we shall transform our economy without focusing on industrialization. So I think in any kind of battle or way or any discussion, there is no way government of Rwanda will compromise on policy formulation as far as industrialization is concerned. So what we are putting forward actually is our policy space in terms of trying to see how we can grow our industries and how we can create jobs, how we can increase export, and how we can improve our macroeconomic stability. And here I'm talking about employment. I'm talking about employment. I'm talking about our trade balance. So it is not really a war.
It's not really a war.
Yeah, it's a policy formulation.
Policy formulation issue.
Yes,
and there's a difference between ban and suspension. And when you're suspended, there are certain conditions you're being given if you want to still be brought back on board. We'll be finding out after the break if Rwanda is ready to actually give in, or we'll stick our guns and say we will continue with what we've decided after the break.
Okay.
We're going to be taking this break, and of course, we will be coming back to digest these and more issues that I just mentioned earlier on. This is a CNBC Africa Special, and we'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. Thank you so much for still being with us. This is a special edition on CNBC Africa, and the focus we're having today is on Rwanda losing their AGOA benefits, especially or specifically on the export of duty-free apparel to the United States. And of course, I'm here with the Minister of Trade and Industry from Rwanda, Vincent Munyeshaka, and also with us is Danny Rugamba, who's Communications Officer at Motions, and Patel Ritesh, the Managing Director of UTEXRA. Before we went for the break, Honorable Minister, we had wanted to actually touch on what exactly is entailed in that document that was sent to Rwanda, specifically on this suspension. What conditions can you reveal to us that you have been given, that if you actually meet those conditions, then you could be brought back to enjoy these benefits? Or is Rwanda even interested in still getting these particular benefits from AGOA?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to clarify that that is a very partial suspension. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you have seen the statement from the USA administration, actually they are very open to discussion. Mm-hmm. And even Rwanda were very open for discussion. So the condition were actually to come up to our, in 2016 we took a decision to increase tariffs on textile second-hand clothes, and even for 2 years. And actually, the requirement is to go back, and we have clarified our position. Our position is very simple. Actually, we will continue with our policy for industrialization, simply because, as you recall, we have our national strategy for transformation. We have our Vision 2050. There is no way we shall achieve our targets, national targets, as far as our economic transformation is concerned, without focusing on industrialization. But we're very open to other areas to discuss, and if we can come back if the U.S. administration wish to give us that benefit of status. And actually, in short, I'm seeing actually a willingness on both sides to negotiate again, to discuss, and to see whether we can find a middle ground. And for your information, actually, AGOA is expiring come 2025, and even the U.S. administration, they are looking at a new model trade facilitation agreement, and they are very open to discuss with Rwanda, even to enter that new model. Right. So very soon, maybe if we are expecting to see if there is need to have a discussion, you shall see that both parties will sit together and discuss and agree on the way forward.
On the way forward on that. Yes. I mean, it's good that there's that kind of conversation going on. Yes. Danny, the experts usually say that trade amongst African countries would actually be one of the best ways of earning respect for the continent. You know, that era, or the traditional era of doing trade with the Western nations, you know, where you have strings attached, for lack of a better word, going intra-African trade, experts say, is the way to go for Africa. Just recently, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement was signed, and it's important for us to understand how young entrepreneurs like you in the textile industry are already plugging in or planning to plug into these benefits that the Continental Free Trade Agreement are going to bring. How are you doing this?
So for the fashion industry, especially for motions, we had started to explore different markets in different parts of Africa. Because the clients that we have, they come from Rwanda, some of them, and others, you see, the second largest part of our clients are from Africa. So that has mapped a way for us to see the products that we make can also be sent to different parts of Africa, and people who are there are interested. We have now started different partnerships with people from Kenya, Uganda, and other different parts in Africa, so they can stock products from Rwanda. So now we are talking about these huge fashion shops in Africa that are working with the fashion industries in Rwanda. And we see that as a huge opportunity, and as a huge good trade and respect between these both areas. So the parties that are involved are they are very welcoming of our products, because the products that are made here are unique, and they want to have that kind of diversity into their shops. Not only their shops, but also the clientele we have. They are very much interested. They are so willing to come and explore the fashion industry in Rwanda, and also have that interaction with fashion designers to see how we can grow together.
Perfect. Ritesh, I'm made to understand that the suit you're wearing is completely made in Rwanda.
Yes.
You actually made it from Utexra. Yes. And the issue here is the support, because earlier on we spoke of the mindset issue. I mean, out of the three of you, I'm not sure about the minister, mine is not made in Rwanda. And I want to hear from you, what do you want to be done that would actually help more people to actually put on these garments that are actually made here?
It's now we have only two big challenge. Number one is awareness, and number two is a mindset. First of all, we have to start our own distribution channel to reach our product to the end user. And same time, we have to see how we can change their mindset.
When you say mindset, what exactly do you mean?
Mindset means still people are thinking that in Rwanda anyone can make this kind of suit. They have a question. They have still question they can make this kind of shirt. So they have to accept this is possible in Rwanda and this is made in Rwanda. So that is what we are we are talking about, the change of the mentality.
Right. Probably the minister, would we expect to see a situation where at policy level we would have, because people always believe when they see their leaders leading from the front, when we say buy made in Rwanda, consume made in Rwanda, they would want to see probably the ministers or the head of government wearing these suits that Ritesh is actually wearing right now. Would we be able to see this in the near future?
Actually, this is a very good initiative, and I'm ready to discuss it with other cabinet members, simply because we need to believe in our country, we need to believe in Africa. For instance, and we need to lead by example. If we are coming with a policy, we need to show that we are supporting it. Actually, we are part of the demand side. Some of us we're using second-hand clothes like other Rwandans. So we need to have that move in mindset and take maybe a policy action, for instance. Why can't we have Made in Rwanda Day, for instance, like every Friday, every minister, local government officials, everybody wear Made in Rwanda clothes. So, and this is a market, this is demand, and this is actually some kind of incentives. And even if you're looking at our purchasing power, I think we have it in comparison with other part of the population. So this is a good initiative. So, but I'd like to come up to the question you have asked later on intra-Africa trade. Yeah, I think there is a very strong to increase the level of trade within Africa, simply because we need to have some economic power as a continent, but also we need to increase our share in the whole global trading system. For instance, right now, inter-Africa trade is at around 16%. The African Union Commission come up with a strategy to make sure that by 2022 we increase it at 53%. But also our export from Africa to the rest of the world is simply 3%, so we need to increase it. But what I'd like to give as a comment, increasing intra-Africa trade does not mean we don't trade with the rest of the world. Yes, we need to increase intra-Africa trade to have that economic power. Then we trade even with the rest of the world. This is because we are living in one world, and we need to have our economic power as Africa. Yeah.
Right. And probably before I go back to the other panelists, do you personally feel that Rwanda is unfairly being targeted as far as these trade issues are concerned? Some experts have termed this as Rwanda being one of the latest casualties of the US trade wars. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania were among the countries that actually had their leaders accept that decision that was made at a regional level to roll back the numbers of second-hand clothing coming into their specific East African countries. Today, as we speak, it is Rwanda that is actually suffering this suspension. Do you feel alone in this?
No. First of all, I have to comment at that question. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to appreciate our private sector, but also comment from all around the world. Actually, the comments were very supportive of Rwanda, of our independence in terms of
standing your ground.
Standing around, and then remaining if that policy
Position.
stays as a country. This is number one. Number two, as a comment, what I'd like to say, actually it is not, actually it's our commitment as a country to stand on our commitment again. Without talking about other countries within EAC, they have their own reason, and Rwanda cannot respond in their place. And Rwanda, we have that repetition. If we take a decision, if we have an accession plan, we are ready for implementation. And what we are doing right now, actually, we are not feeling alone, because we first of all, there is an opportunity to discuss again and to meet a middle ground, but also we have opportunities around the world of trading with the rest of the world, within Africa, with Europe and other continents. And for us, this is, we are not feeling that we are not fairly treated. So we are ready to implement our policy.
The decision that you made.
Yes.
And he is actually a diplomat. Definitely understandable if he takes a diplomatic stand. But do you feel that Rwanda has been left alone by its regional partners on a decision that they all sat in a room and said, we agree? But to date, it's only Rwanda that actually faces the consequences of that decision.
I do support him with this. I do support him in the sense that for us as the fashion industry, this was very needed. It was needed in the aspect of for us, because when you look at the fashion industry, it was not born out of this suspension. The fashion industry has been here for quite a years, and this is done out of passion. It's done out of the willingness to make something unique for the Rwandan community and also for different parts of the world. So I don't think they were in a room to look at how they can, single out Rwanda and for it to kind of struggle with all this entire process.
Right. What I meant is, let me just clarify. We would have expected to see Kenya also taking a similar stance, because it was a decision that was decided on by the East African heads of state. Would have expected to see Tanzania as well sticking to that particular ground. But as we look at the consequences of that decision to raise tariffs, or as a strategy of reducing the importation of second-hand clothing, it is Rwanda that has been suspended from accessing AGOA as far as textile and apparel are concerned. Do you feel that Kenya and the other East African countries should have done more to actually stand their same ground as Rwanda has done?
In this sense, I cannot speak of what other countries could have decided, but I think they chose according to the policies they have at hand and also for the benefits they think they get from that act. But for Rwanda, I think the stance it took was very affirmative in the sense of developing the industries. As the minister was saying, we need to develop the industry part of the economy. And so from that, we know that it's very essential if you start with the industries that are locally producing and also give them incentives and support them. So I think the position they took was very needed in a sense of sparking growth and also to motivate the private sector.
Perfect. Ritesh, that was a question that the minister says they asked one of the players, and he actually said, I don't need the AGOA market. For you as a trader, or actually an industry that is here in Rwanda, what do you need to actually grow even more than where you are as far as meeting the market demands are concerned? What are the pending things that are still remaining, technically speaking?
Actually, this is a very positive where action is taken, since they are phasing out the second-hand market and the local market is growing. So actually we are also growing every day, and not only for that one, even the small and medium garment industry is also coming up. So what I can say in textile sector, we believe what we are today definitely will grow gradually every day because of this decision.
Right. The minister is here. From a policy perspective, what do you want from him?
Now what he is doing as per our expectation, I no need anything more than what he is doing.
You're sure you're not being diplomatic?
Yeah.
Danny, what do you need from the minister as a government?
So what I need from the minister as a government, first of all, I have to thank the government because of their very good support system.
He's still waiting for what you need from him.
Yes. So from that, what I expect from him or what we need from the government is, we talked about the cost of transport, which needs to be worked on. Otherwise, the rest is the discussions that we have on a daily basis, because as we grow, we also need to look at we are exploring different areas, we're exploring different techniques that will help us to meet demands of the local and international market. So from there, we can also develop different questions and different requests as we go by. Right. But for now, the one that is pending and that is crucial is looking at the cost of transport. How can they work with us to
Any practical solutions or suggestions that you already have that would work on that issue of transport?
It's looking at it from the angle of incentive. It being an incentive of, if we are going to different areas, we are going to Itexirwa, we are going to other parts of the world for imports of the raw materials. How can we, from the tickets that we use, from other different costs that are incurred, if we talk about that, we also mention how the raw materials is priced and from its transport to reaching Rwanda. So from there, how can we look at how can we reduce the cost? And from there, the practical angle is looking at the numbers, looking at the amount we need each and every time that we travel to get that, and also to see what can be done from that amount to go down a bit.
If you were speaking to the person of authority who's actually to make that decision that you really so badly want to be made so that it reduces your cost of transport, what practical thing would you tell them that is actually going to solve that particular problem?
The practical thing that I'm going to tell them that is going to solve the problem, it could be the reduction of the costs and of the tickets that are used for us to travel.
So if you're traveling to go and bring your raw materials, there has to be a specific amount you spend for the transport tickets. And if you turn back to Ritesh, what would you tell him? What would you want from him?
As he mentioned, one of the challenges that they have is raising awareness for people outside to know that they have quality fabrics, for them to know what they're really producing. We are yet to work together and see how we can check out all the fabrics they have, because some of them we use. But there are others that we need to see from what they use. How can we compare the pricing they have and also the pricing for us to go and source all those things from internationally. So what I can demand is that very close discussion on their materials, and also how can we access them, and that comes from raising awareness on what they do, and also for us to visit and connect.
Right. I'm going to take now one last round of questions and then we close. Ritesh, picking just from what he says as you give us your closing remarks, do you also feel that we've talked about the issue of mindsets from the public? Do you also feel that the players in the industry also need to change their mindset as far as what you produce is concerned? Because he says there are things that they don't know that you actually produce, and most of them end up going to look for that or to source for it in the markets outside of Rwanda. Do you also feel that there's a need also of mindset change back here at home for the players in the industry?
Not 100%, but it definitely requires slightly, because textile and garment is one of the fashion industries where every day new product is coming, every day new product is coming. So somebody has to be very tied with the market, and especially with the focusing now to the industry. So whatever our new development, whatever new product, definitely we have to share with the industry. So
right. Okay. Danny, would we take that as your closing remark, or you have any last comment you want to make?
The last comment that I would love to make is, let's work together for us to develop this industry, the fashion industry and also the textile industry. So that takes all of us. It does not take I personally, it takes us, the producers, and also for the clients to come in and to learn about the things that we make from Rwanda. So it's a joint effort from different stakeholders, and we would love to work with them, would love to help them understand that this is actually the new movement to be part of.
All right, perfect. Honorable Minister, as you also give us your closing remarks, I just want to slide in a last question. You know, the genesis of all this suspension was the decision to actually make it harder for second-hand clothes from the US to come into Rwanda. And the question that locals probably have, some of them at least, if not all of them, would be, why not let us decide for ourselves? Why not let the competition happen between the second-hand clothes and the locally made garments from our local industries? And they feel that we cannot actually make it. We cannot actually go to that extent of satisfying the entire market, especially for those who are consuming this second-hand clothes that are now going to be phased out gradually. What would you tell people who have such kind of thoughts?
Okay. Actually, we are not targeting second-hand clothes from America alone, simply because, for instance, imports of second-hand clothes from America represent only 80%. From China, it is 20%. From Netherlands, it's around 12%. From Belgium, it's around 15%. So that was a global policy targeting second-hand clothes. Now we are talking about competition. Competing on what? There are two levels of competition. Competition on price, but also competition on quality. And for me, maybe it's a matter of choice, but for me, there is no comparative advantage quality-wise between second-hand and factory-made product, fresh factory-made product. So there is no competition between the two. And actually, on the background of it, there is our dignity as Rwandans, there is our integrity, dignity as Rwandan, and actually you don't see any competition between the two, quality-wise. Yeah. And yes. The issue, the last segment of your question, the issue, how do we fill the gap? Actually, the challenge we have right now is to fill the gap.
And we've already made a decision, and we know that.
And we are very committed with local, the domestic market players actually to fill that gap. Right. That's why, for instance, in my closing remarks, I would like to actually to pledge and to commit government support to local producers on two elements. First of all, even free elements. We will consider, we'll continue to discuss around issues around cost of transport, and for that we have two ways of doing that, and I think we need to discuss with local transporters, but also with Rwanda Air to see whether we can have an agreement and incentive in that area. Number two, cost of energy has been a very good, big component of total cost of production, and as you may know, this year, government has put like 10.5 billion in our national budget, actually to cater for electricity tariff reduction. It is happening now, and it will continue to happen as far as we'll be having financial resources to do so. And our final support will be on awareness. Definitely awareness on Made in Rwanda, but also awareness to be able for them to enter our domestic market. Lastly, maybe what I'd like to ask them is to improve efficiency in terms of maximizing on capacity utilization. For instance, Utexirwa is now working at 40%. So they need to commit on an investment plan to make sure that they maximize on utilization capacity, and then the product will be getting cheaper as they increase on productivity. So those are my comments, and lastly, I would like really to take this opportunity to thank Rwandan population for having supported government of Rwanda during the whole process, the whole saga, if I can call it saga, that started in 2015, and actually, definitely, at the end of the day, I think our industrial sector will keep growing out of even this decision.
Right, perfect. So it is what sometimes people call a blessing in disguise. Definitely, that is the time we had for this particular conversation. It is a story that we'll keep our ears on the ground for, and we'll definitely be able to inform you of whatever updates that come through in this particular end. But it is time for us to bring down the curtains to this special edition on CNBC Africa. From Kigali, Rwanda, I'm Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.